My name is Mike Purley, and I've been with the Streamkeepers for, I think about 14 years. I used to live in West Vancouver, now I live in North Vancouver. I'm a retired commercial banker. I enjoy the outdoors. I think I was better at the outdoors than I was a commercial banker, but I did have 33 years with the Royal Bank. Wanted to join Streamkeepers. Didn't really know how to join Streamkeepers. I was at the Coho Festival and saw all the tables with Streamkeepers. Never really joined them. We had an international student living with us from West Vancouver High School. He was a Streamkeeper. He kept disappearing on Sundays to go do something with Streamkeepers. I asked him, like, what are you doing? And he said, well, you know, we're on a salmon survey program and we're counting the salmon in the creeks. And I thought, West Vancouver has returning salmon in creeks? I didn't know. So he said, well, why don't you come along? So I attended, went down to Brothers Creek. It was choked full of chum salmon. I had never been so close to fish other than the ones that I was catching on the end of my fishing rod here. So, and then after that, I joined and here I am today. So it's just wonderful to see. Hopefully some of you that aren't members will become members. Our society was founded in 2001, so it's been about 23 years. We fluctuate between about 275 and 330 members. I think we're in the lower category right now, but we'll boost that up. We are a 100% completely volunteer society, and we do charge a nominal fee of $10 to join us, and that's an annual membership, and we do have multiple ways where you can go multiple years with us if you choose. Everything I say here is available also on our website down at the bottom here, www.westvancouverstreamkeepers.ca. So with that, yeah, so what do we do? So all of our activities, or the bulk of our activities, are done by the members and the volunteers in our society. We try to raise the awareness of all the local streams and enhancing the spawning habitat. We do salmon surveys. We actively look at areas in the creeks that where the salmon needs some help. We fundraise to try and help us with many of the projects where we do some upgrades for the salmon. We do our best to communicate what we're doing to all the public so that we try to be as active and as open as we possibly can. And we have many, many volunteers that just love to help us. So we have 22 creeks or thereabouts. These are all the creeks that we try and look after. Not all of them are salmon-bearing creeks. In fact, the vast majority of them struggle to have salmon returning to them. Many of them have a history of receiving salmon. Brothers Creek and Haddon Creek and Cypress Creek and McDonald Creek, Nelson Creek, Rogers Creek to some degree. They have a history of having salmon returns. The other ones would receive occasional salmon throughout history, and occasionally they still receive salmon. We're trying to focus on the creeks that have the highest potential for returning salmon. So of the 22 creeks, the most prolific ones, I'm going to just go to, I have a little map here as well here. But the best creeks that we get salmon returning to are Haddon Creeks and the Brothers Creek water system, and McDonald is in the previous one. And let's see now, also Nelson Creek, is that show on that one there? It might be on, okay, doesn't really matter. But so those are the main creeks that we really try to focus on. Brothers and Haddon are really the shining stars for returning fish. If you ever have a chance to go down to the Brothers Creek viewing platform, has anybody been down to the Brothers Creek viewing platform? I know many of you have, but has anybody not been down to the Brothers Creek viewing? All right, so it is just off Keith Road. You go down Taylor Way, or you go up Taylor Way, and you turn on Keith Road, go down, it'll be a swale. And then those old bridges that are down there, you're going to walk to the left-hand side, then down right to Brothers Creek, where there's a viewing platform. You'll see many, many salmon when the salmon are returning, which is in the autumn. So right now, if you went down there, you'd be disappointed. You won't see any fish. Some of the activities that we do, we're very active in the rearing of the salmon. We're trying to help populate the creeks. This is our Nelson Creek fish hatchery. This is a kind of a long shot of it here. These are the, you know, I should use my fishing pole as a pointer stick here, because there we are. So this is an old antique fishing. I don't know how many fish it's caught or not caught, because yeah. So these are the tanks that hold the fry. Actually, our hatchery operator Jan Mosier is in our crowd. I'm pointing there; she's waving at her. Thank you, Jan. We had this. Jan rears. What's this year? 82,000 chum and how many? 20,000 something coho. Right now, the chum have been raised and released, and those tanks are now full of the coho fry. This is the internal workings of the hatchery. These are the trays that hold the eggs, and this is where you count everything, and there's a freezer to keep everything fresh. Let's see now. Just click here again. There's our friends the fish. So what we do in order to obtain the fish eggs is we harvest with the help of Department of Fisheries. We harvest the eggs from returning fish from the Capilano hatchery. Sometimes we get our fish from, or our supply of eggs from the Capilano hatchery. Sometimes we get it from the Alouette, and we've even been out at the Tenderfoot out in Squamish. These are Alouette chum salmon. Anybody know if these are male or female? These are male. Look at those big mouths on them there. They're also, chum salmon are also known as dog salmon, and when they hit fresh water, they develop these big stripes and things, and their mouths change, and they look quite intimidating. So what we do is we have to, when we receive the female, we go and get the female fish and the male's fish, and we harvest the eggs from the female, and we harvest the milk from the males. And that's how we do that. It is a little bit intimidating to hold up a big fish like that. This is our hatchery. This is the action of our hatchery. These are the eggs that have been fertilized. They're in the trays, and they're continuously having fresh water. It's the Nelson Creek water that we utilize. And these are the eggs just as they're harvesting. You might notice there's one that has harvest, and this is at the eyed stage where the eggs themselves have the eyes. They're almost like they're looking at you. You know, they're kind of, yeah, and it's quite special. Let's see now. And the major projects that we do. So sometimes we identify areas where fish are having difficulty. Many times it's the access to the creeks where they're having difficulties. So we are putting in, or we have put in Nelson Creek. I think this is this Nelson Creek, Keith? You recognize those guys working on that? I think that is Nelson Creek. They're doing some work on the. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. You can see that we bring in big contractors to do the work for us after raising sufficient funds to do the project work. If the salmon can't get into the spawning areas, then that's a major problem. Other things that we do in order to, and we don't just build the fish ladders, we try to work on the estuary management. I'm just going to show you a picture that I don't have here, but I have it here. It's Rogers Creek. Before and after, we've done some work on it. So at low tide and medium tide, I don't know if you can see this or not. Maybe I should have taken a picture of, oh, I'm not so sure if that helps. There's no way that fish can get in. So we provided a channel into Rogers Creek with the help of some big contractors. And so the fish might not be able to get in at a super low tide, but at least we're carving out an area and they can get into the creeks. And if we can get them into the creeks, that's a big win for us. And what they do in the creeks is their business. We really want them to be busy in the creeks, but then we'll look at the other factors that they have to deal with when they're in the creeks. And as an urban creek and river, many of them have been channelized because of property homeowners. When they built their houses, the idea was to control water, not to let water control you. So that's us as human beings. We need to control water, so they channelize. And when you channelize, all that water that used to spread out and lose energy actually increases energy, because it's a big force of water coming down in a small contained channel. But anyway, so we've been working in estuaries, and we also work with some of the salmon ladders to get by some of the obstacles that the salmon encounter. This is the Lawson Creek fish ladder behind the Legion, and look at the difference here between the water flow. This is summertime, and this is an atmospheric river which just hit. So obviously when we go in and do our cleanup sometimes, when we do our cleanup, because these, there's quite a bit of rocks and things that does build up in the ladder itself. We clean that out, and we certainly have to choose a time when the water is not doing this. That's trouble, and that's an enormous amount of water coming down through that ladder. That would be enough to scour anything out, including any fish that was working its way up the ladder. They would be swept downstream again, and they'd have to start over and probably get damaged with these big atmospheric rivers that are hitting us on occasion. Another fish ladder that we work on here. This is Nelson Creek. This is the new fish ladder that we put in. That's it looking down on it, and this is us cleaning it, because it had debris and whatnot. So we have to make sure that it's, these are all big pools, and then a step and pool. The salmon get their thrust not from bubbly water, not completely foamy water. They need to have a place to thrust up and over. And if it fills up with rocks and debris, then it's not the type of water that they can access, or they can't negotiate it. They get stuck and they can't even get into the creeks. Some of the other obstacles, this is Rogers Creek. There's another salmon ladder, and of course this is during an atmospheric river. So again, if you can see there's an old style culvert, and there's another tunnel here. This is the culvert under the CN railway crossing in Rogers Creek, and you can see these boulders are big. They get in there, and it's quite amazing. That's a fish ladder. This is during the drought of the summer, and there's a big culvert that goes under Stevens Drive, and when the water is really flowing, it cascades down here, and sometimes even in the overflow pipe. But normally there's water here, and that's so the fish without this would not be able to get past Stevens Drive. They do get past Stevens Drive. Occasionally things like this happen in the culvert, or sorry, in the fish ladder. And of course that's, if a fish is in there trying to get past that, they're not going to get past it. So those are some of the when we see things like that, we have to chase it down and get after it. The Memorial Park Rearing Pond and Hay Creek Pond. I think we all know where the Memorial Salmon Rearing Pond is. It's in Memorial Park, obviously. This is the shot here of it. It's really it looks really busy with all of the vegetation. There's a good reason for the vegetation because of our warming temperatures and whatnot. It's good to keep the sun off of the water, because in low water times in summertime, if the water temperature rises too much, that's not good for any of the resident fish that are in the creeks. McDonald Creek does have its own cutthroat trout, and it does receive salmon into it. Further up at Hay Creek, yeah, this is the shot. So this is the salmon rearing pond. One of the things that we do also is we make sure that the rearing pond is not getting overly clogged with sediment. All of these creeks bring down sand and sediment from the mountains, and this is actually this is the Hay Creek one. It's the picture actually. It's a big pond. You can't really see it here. I was trying to show. This is a huge delta of sand, and then that's a bit of a cliff. That's about 1.5 foot deep of water, and this is about 2 inches of water. So we're organizing with the district to bring a big truck in to truck all that sand out of that rearing pond, and we did that with the Memorial Park rearing pond, because it too was getting heavily silted. So these are all some of the things that the streamkeepers tend to, and we're watching over the creeks just to make sure that they're always ready for returning fish. And the only real time that we can do that is when there's not adult salmon in the creeks. And when the adult salmon are in the creeks, it's fall. That's when the rains occur. That's when the river velocities increase. We need to do it at a quiet time, and we don't want to stress out the resident cutthroat and all the other little critters that are in the creek. There's crayfish in these waters. There's lots of bugs, good aquatic bugs. They're very healthy streams. I don't think we've ever encountered a stream that wasn't healthy unless it had been polluted by some type of industrial issue. And even if that happens, it's amazing how forgiving sometimes Mother Nature can be, how the creek does recover. Other activities that we do, sometimes we just do basic cleanups. We do invasive plant pulling. We want to try to keep the creeks as natural as possible. I'm moving along quite quickly because I know the time is of the essence here. So McDonald Creek fish ladder. Here's another fish ladder. See, there's no way a fish is going to be able to negotiate this fish ladder. Look at that. Look at the amount of rocks that are in it. Of course, this is low water, but the pools themselves are completely. So even if water got in here and it would just be a raging torrent. A fish would have enormous difficulty in negotiating that. So we put a team in there with shovels. It's back-breaking work. And so this is the before, and look at what we did. We cleaned those things out. So yeah, so now you can see those plunge pools that the fish would jump into. And now, of course, this is summertime, so the flow is not super exciting. In winter, there's much more flow coming through there. But the amount of rocks and debris that we had, you can see some of it here, and some of the rocks are enormous. And the amount of energy that these creeks have is quite exciting. Is that the word I want to use? It's quite astounding. Other things that we see and find in our fish pack. I found John Barker in one of these. Yeah, he was clogging up the ladder. I said, you can't get any fish value here. So this is Rogers Creek near Bellevue. These are some baffles here that have been put in. They're quite old. You'll notice that this little plunge area here is. It should be deep enough for a fish to be able to jump, but then there's some really tough areas where the fish would have to get by. They need an awful lot more water, and then there's too much velocity. So that's one of the things with Rogers, is that the channelization is a little bit it's too much for the fish. And other than cleaning out the fish ladders that we can get at, you can't get a big guy like me into that fish ladder. I would never get out. So that's why John's in there. And there are members of the public that for one reason or another have I'm not sure what you call that, have tagged. And so I just phoned the district, and the district will deal with that. So it's quite unfortunate that they would think of that. But that's, the activities of the Streamkeepers include, the big gratifications of seeing the fish coming through, and some of the lows of some members of our people that, but that doesn't hurt a fish. I mean, but it just hurts our feelings. So. Some of the community engagement, we do the spawner surveys. I'm going to make sure that's the right one. Yep, that's the spawner surveys. And what we do is we go into high schools, and we encourage them to form teams, and we will then take them out into the creeks and show them the returning salmon in the fall. This is a program that's been running for about 15 years now. John's at 15 years? Yeah. So the nice thing about this is just how excited these teams get when they see salmon. A lot of them have never really encountered salmon before, and what we do for 7 weeks, from October to December, we put them in groups of 5 or 4, and some of them put the hip waders on, and some of them just do the boots, and they do shore surveys. The really robust ones put the hip waders on, and we'll take them right into the creeks, and they get to see a salmon. They take the water temperature, they take the air temperature, they do the weather conditions, they measure the flow of the creek, and we track the salmon, alive or dead. And if it's dead, and we will open up that salmon to see if it's been spawned, see if it had a chance to spawn or not. So these young students get a lot out of this. They're really, really excited about the opportunity of going into the creeks. And I don't know, who here has walked with a salmon in a creek before? Because I'm going to do an impression of a young student encountering a salmon for the very first time, because these kids have never seen salmon before. They're walking along like this, and it's like, ah! 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 It's okay, it's just a salmon. Just a salmon, just a salmon. But that's the truth. That's what happens when they see a salmon. It's bumping into their, sometimes they jump up, and they, I've yet to see one go right inside the but that could possibly happen. Numbers of, I just did a snapshot of what these kids and what these stewards have encountered. These are the strongest creeks that we have. I've got the numbers for 2023. Let me just, what page is this? This is 21. Hang on here. So with 2023, we did have, hang on here. Yeah, we did have the strongest coho year that we've had in many years. I haven't divided it up by fish type or not, but you can see the fluctuation. I mean, 2016 we had just an enormous year, and then these are good years. Sometimes the numbers do fluctuate. It's hard to say if our behavior toward fish is plus or minus. I think generally speaking, all of humanity is certainly affecting the numbers of fish that are coming in. they are survivors. They do adapt. Last year, you may remember the coho fish die-off that the Streamkeepers discovered. John Barker and his team discovered that there was a chemical from, well, he discovered fully mature coho, unspawned silver right out of the ocean that were dead. And through investigations, it was determined that the likely culprit was this chemical from rubber tires, which for whatever reason seems to affect coho salmon and not chum salmon and not necessarily Chinook salmon. It doesn't seem to bother the resident cutthroat that are in the creek. So it's, the science is still trying to determine what's going on with that. But it is something that needs to be dealt with, and the solution might be quite simple. That chemical breaks down fairly quickly after coming off the tires, and it tends to plume when the big rains arrive. Those plumes from the big rains sometimes arrive either before or after the coho the biggest run of coho arrives. For whatever reason, there's a possibility that the coho were moving into the creeks just as that big storm hit, washed all the chemical into the, and then because of that they were affected. But having said that, this was a strong coho year for returning coho in our creeks. So of the 122 fish, I think about 56 of them were coho in our creeks. So you can see Haddon Creek is quite strong, and some of the other creeks, the numbers are quite low. And those other creeks, they're not huge returning. Historically, never been. They receive salmon, but not in huge numbers. So that's the salmon survey. We had another program which we're not doing currently right now, but I think many of you may know about it. It's the herring spawn program. Our salmon eat herring, so it's in their food chain, and we've been doing whatever we possibly can to interrupt that food chain through our being the humans that we are. So an idea came from the Squamish Streamkeepers to hang nets. Initially, they just wrapped creosote pylons, because when the herring were trying to spawn, they were spawning on the creosote pylons, and then of course the creosote was destroying the eggs. So they wrapped the pylons, and they found that that helped keep the eggs fresh, and they started to hatch. They came up with this idea of hanging nets. We did that as Streamkeepers as well, and we did it in various places, thinking that we could help with the overall run of food chain for the salmon. This is a net that is heavily laden with eggs from the herring spawn. It didn't come from our area. We only hung, I think, at the most 12 of these nets from various places. We were in Thunderbird Marina, we were in West Vancouver Marina, we were at the research station on the waterfront by Cypress Creek. We were at also Dunderave Pier. I think we were also in Horseshoe Bay. We could not find any herring to come and spawn on our nets. We had anecdotal evidence, old timers saying that their boats had eggs on the bottom of their hulls back in the 1950s and earlier. So we thought that hanging nets would be helpful, but that it's not necessarily working for us. So we haven't been hanging nets in the last couple of years. Those that wanted to volunteer with the Streamkeepers to do that are helping out in False Creek, which is where this big program is currently running. They hang like 300 to 350 nets off of their piers, and they get spawns. You think, why would a herring want to go to False Creek of all of all the places that might have industrial issues, would you not want to come to West Vancouver? I mean, how much industry do we have in West Vancouver? But I think the egg count, it has to be an estimate. They had like 3 or 4 spawns. Like they have one come in and then a day later another big. So the herrings spawn on top of eggs. They got like 3 layers of eggs from egg spawn. And I think the numbers of eggs that are estimated are in like like 50 to 80 million eggs, of which maybe 40% will hatch. That's still a big number. And we're starting to see more herring bubbling up in areas of the Salish Sea, and so I think that's a good program. Unfortunately, at this time, we're not doing it because we just haven't had success. But maybe we'll start it up again. One of the other programs that we have to try to helpfully to get our youngsters and our engaged is the Adopt a Fish program, where we work with the West Vancouver Library and the Coho Festival people, and we release coho salmon into McDonald Creek. And here's a if you show up at the library, we just finished having another successful one a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. And it's on Saturday. It was raining, and then it stopped raining, and it was just perfect. So little young families go to the library. They have a story time there. They pick up a diploma, get walked across the street safely, and into the park, where they encounter a fisheries truck that has these nice little cohos, and then they walk down the stairs with their yellow buckets, and they release their coho into the creeks with the help of the streamkeepers, making sure that the release goes very well. Many volunteers help with that program. It's been running for, I don't know how many years, but John, you know how many years? No, you don't know. It doesn't really matter anyway. It's been running. It's very successful. And again, it's it's at the library, the Coho Society just are great sponsors. And we all help each other, and that's kind of the crowds that we deal with releasing fish. And there's a big lineup, and this is the Memorial Park area. Actually, the rearing pond is actually in behind here. It's a little steep to get into, so we recommended that they release right into the creek. Other programs that we do, we go into the elementary schools, and we paint the paint the yellowfish on the storm drains. Who knows where storm drains lead to? Where do storm drains go? Does anybody know where they go? They go right to the ocean. That's right. They don't go to the sewage plant. It's too expensive to go there. I think that's probably what it is. That's a West Van joke, but I'm glad the North Van people are laughing. You're part of it as well, we at this time of year, in the next few weeks, we'll be out with teams painting yellowfish on the storm drains. The yellowfish signify that it is not part of our sewage system. It's a storm drain. Anything you put down the drain affects the little critters that are living in the creeks. So it's just a subtle reminder, and I think you see them quite frequently at storm drains. We just have that little template there. There's 2 methods you can use. You can use the paint or use the stick down. And the stick down, the painting mechanism is far safer for grade 2s and grade 3s, because the stick down, you have a big giant rubber hammer, and you can imagine what happens when you put the sticky thing right on and then start hammering the fish. The yellow fish works great, but not necessarily with grade 2s. So painting is the preferred method for that age group. Other programs that we do, the Emerging Fry program and Smolt program. I think 2 or 3 years ago, we used to just visually try to spot the the emerging fry and smolts in our creeks just by watching over a creek and staring at it for like half an hour, just seeing if there was something moving down there, and then even then that would be difficult. So what we did is with the approval of fisheries, we were able to trap we would put bait in these little, what they call little fry traps, and there's a very small opening. It's kind of like a small prawn trap, or it's called a fry trap. And we put a little bit of bait in there. Apparently fish like to eat like cat food. That works. In West Van, the fish here, they like salmon roe. You know, the salmon roe is much more to their taste, and so that's anyway. So we put up to 12 traps in 7 or 8 different creeks, and we see what we capture. And what we capture in these traps, we just put them in at 8 o'clock at night, and then we retrieve them the following morning. We have some teams that go out, so on the retrieval, we capture the smolts and the fry, and also cutthroats. Anyone here know which one's the cutthroat? This one right here, and he's a resident. There we are. He's very, he's quite striking. Spots, and they the ones we can catch they can be 6-7 inches sometimes. So that's just telling us that these creeks are very much alive. This is a coho, a young coho, and he's got the par marks. He's also got these white tips on his fins, which is an indication that it is indeed a coho salmon. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's probably going to head to the ocean. We would normally, at this stage, of course, we put him back. So he's been in the creek, living in the creek temporarily, avoiding cutthroats, because the cutthroats are basically the kings of our. They're highly predatory, and they love little fish. So this he's big enough to now head to the ocean, and he probably will over the next month or so. We trapped him, I think, in early June, so he would be heading out to become a big adult salmon. Here's some of the results that we have when we trap. We just trap in each creek for one night, and numbers of traps that we set, and numbers of coho and coho fry, and sometimes we even get sculpin. Those are resident. They look like little miniature lingcods, for lack of a better description. You notice here Haddon Creek. Haddon Creek is quite an interesting creek. I mean, Haddon flows into Brothers. Brothers flows into the Capilano, and then Capilano goes into the ocean. Haddon Creek is a star with coho, and we don't put any of our hatchery coho in Haddon. So these are wild fish. These are wild. I mean, they may have some affiliation with the big fish hatchery, but these are not our fish that are reproducing in our creeks. These are wild fish that are getting in. So we're quite excited when we see these big numbers like that. For whatever reason, last year, Brothers, this is just 2023. The numbers were similar before. The previous year, Brothers had more coho captured than Haddon did. But you can see that the creeks are full of cutthroat, even the smaller creeks, which is good to see. So we are looking for a coho, but we're quite happy when we capture the cutthroat. We'll talk a little bit about salmon. Anybody know what kind of salmon this is? It's a pink salmon. And let's just check. I think oh, look, it is a pink salmon. Yeah, so that's the males. I just thought I'd talk a little bit about the types of salmon that do come into our creeks. Pink salmon are definitely one that come in. They come in every second year. All of the creeks locally were getting full of pink salmon. I counted on one day. I counted 131 fish in Haddon. And that's just one day. And then the week later, they were all dead because they had all spawned out. So. But to come across, in one salmon survey, 131 pink salmon, that was truly phenomenal. And many of the other creeks were reporting similar numbers. Okay, and there's another. Who can name this salmon? Let's have a look. It's a chum salmon. That's a big male, I think. Big males have the big tiger stripes. They don't have that in the wild when they're in the ocean. They're silver. They have a faint look of, if you really be lucky enough to see them in the wild. But when they hit the fresh water, their hormones change. All the fish hormones change. That's why the male pinks develop a big hump on their back, and the chums turn that motley look. The males, the females have a band. And again, these fish, they do come into our creeks. And anybody know what that one is? It's a nice coho. Coho. Ooh. And then, yeah, so we get coho in our creeks. That's a Chinook. And I have a story about a Chinook salmon. Occasionally they do come into our creeks, especially Haddon and Brothers. And where's my notes about that one? In 2016, I think it was, I was doing a salmon survey it was 2016 in Haddon Creek. It was my first time I got a team together and did a salmon survey, and I was relatively new into Streamkeepers. Got into Salmon Creek, I got into Haddon Creek, and right away I see these big fish that were in the creek, and I thought that the only thing that I would possibly see would be chum and the occasional coho, but these ones didn't. They were big enough and even bigger than what I had seen in the creeks for representing chum salmon, and I thought I think that these are Chinook. And I contacted Streamkeepers afterward because I saw like 30 or 40 of these Chinook in the creek, and this is Haddon Creek. And so with further investigation, it turns out that they were Chinook salmon. After I convinced John that I did know what a Chinook salmon looked like. So what happened was the Capilano was running. The theory was that the Capilano was running heavily turbid, and there was a hatchery originated run that was of Chinook that were heading back up the Capilano. Brothers Creek was running clear. They went into Brothers Creek. They went all the way up. They turned right and went into Haddon Creek, and that's what happened. It's kind of a marvel of we'll say Mother Nature that just because a stream historically may not have a salmon run doesn't mean that it might not, that it will or won't ever receive salmon. Those salmon got into Haddon Creek. They spawned, and 3 years later we were waiting for their offspring. It was a drought, and they couldn't. There were returning Chinook wanting to get into Haddon Creek. They were stuck at the confluence of Brothers and Haddon Creek. So it was a little bit disappointing, but we can't control the weather, but that's kind of what happened. And so Haddon Creek does receive the occasional Chinook salmon into it. So the remnants of that very brief run that came in there, hopefully maybe another weather event will allow them to get past that confluence, which is kind of like a big sheet of aggregate. It's natural, but it does take a fair amount of water for that confluence to allow fish into the creek. Other wildlife that we have in the creeks, of course, we have lots of aquatic bugs and river otters. River otters are voracious. I think and that there are sea otters and then there are river otters. We don't have sea otters here currently. They are starting to work their way back. The river otters are very voracious. We do see lots of, I think that's a barred owl. We do see them. There are cutthroat trout, eagles, and the American dipper is kind of a funny bird. He has, oh yeah, they're kind of funny to watch, and they're very, yeah, there you go. That's they do little dips, and they like to eat fish eggs. So when we're doing surveys and we see fish eggs or we see American dippers, we're pretty sure that there's probably fish eggs around, and there's fish eggs around. There must be adult salmon. Another story about, just before I talk a little bit about that, is in Haddon Creek 1 year I was doing a survey again and could not find a coho salmon or any signs of coho salmon. And you know, it's just kind of hot and cold as far as the returns. And we did 7 surveys. Never saw a coho salmon, and we're kind of disappointed. But the spring fry survey, where we put the traps in, guess what we caught? We caught hundreds of coho fry. So like the coho are quite wary. They're not, if there's, this is my theory, if there's heavy concentrations of fish, all competing to get up creeks and stuff, sometimes they'll move during the day, and sometimes they won't pay attention to it. They're working on, they got to spawn. But if there's small numbers, they might just hunker down in the daylight and then move at night. And I think that's really what happened in Haddon Creek. A number of coho were there. We never saw them. They're not always a beautiful hue of red. Sometimes they're quite dark. So if they hide in the river banks during the day, it's very difficult to find them. I've found coho past Stevens Drive, go all the way up Haddon Drive, and where the golf course is, I've seen coho at that culvert way up there. So like that's just astounding that those coho can get up there and spawn. So I'm going to start to set some traps on the trapping survey over the next month or so. I am looking for volunteers, by the way, to help me out. So if you're not a member and you want to volunteer, maybe I'll put you in the creeks and you can help me with the traps. One of the big projects that we're working on currently is Cypress Creek. Cypress Creek, everybody knows where Cypress Creek is. It's our biggest watershed of all the creeks, with the exception of the Capilano. This is the biggest one by far, and it does run clear. It has been highly channelized with urbanization. There is enormous amounts of water going down Cypress Creek, and it's all getting pushed into the channels. What happens there is the historic areas where salmon had spawned, those types of spawning beds have been destroyed with the flow of the creek. Up until just recently, Cypress still did receive strong populations of spawning pink salmon. We are very sure that Cypress Creek was a strong coho, steelhead, and chum, and probably even Chinook salmon, and also pink salmon. But for whatever reason now, it's not really reporting too many big numbers of these returning fish. It still does receive some pink and some coho, but those numbers seem to be few and far between. And it was just I don't want to say it collapsed, but we're working on a very ambitious project currently to try and help Cypress Creek. So it's a big task. We have many people working on it, and it's there's a lot of permits that have to get done. There's a lot of communication that needs to get done with all the various levels of government. So far, we're feeling that we're getting green lights what we're trying to do, and really what we're trying to do is slow down the velocity of the creek by putting in special weirs and whatnot to kind of let the gravel and sand get reestablished. Now, there's many property owners that just need to be assured that what if anything, and this is still it's not a green light to actually bring in the crews that would do this, but we're trying to help Cypress Creek with this. So this is Marine Drive, and so we're working on the lower part. There is a plan for the upper part as well, with the fish ladder over this weir that the research center uses to source water. But if we can allow the water to slow down and to pool and to get let gravel and sand get reestablished, then if some salmon want to get in, then they have a place to spawn, because right now it's very difficult for them to spawn. So that's a big project. There's many parts that are still moving, and it looks like the lower part of the Cypress Creek project is something that's going to move forward, and we're quite excited about that. Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, it's quite, and then with politics and elections, and all those 3 different levels of government are helping us out, and sometimes faces come and go, and property owners as well. It's a very complex thing to try to reestablish help in creeks these days. So, but it is something that we're certainly working on. That all the salmon passage difficulties of channelization and rocks and whatnot, and urbanization. It's quite astounding. There's another little talk about the coho die-off that was in the news last year. We did talk about that. So there was also what we do as streamkeepers. We're not all business all the time. We have a seaside social for all of our members. So not only do you get to learn and participate with the rearing of salmon and learning a bit about salmon and making new friends and finding people that are close to you. Oh, by the way, this wheel has nothing to do with what I'm talking about here, but it's just a pretty picture here. So, well, join us anyway, okay? Because that's important. Now, and I think everyone's seen the survival rate of salmon here. There's 100. Pretend I'm spinning it here, and there's only one section where they get to spawn, but many of them get to at least adulthood, and it's a tough road for all of the salmon. And so whatever we can possibly do to help out, it's just so important. If you get to walk with a salmon, and I think one of the door prizes that we're going to have is also going to include the possibility of walking with the salmon with me when we're doing a salmon survey with some of the high school students. So again, if you have any questions, and you can ask at the online at the admin at West Vancouver Streamkeepers, or you can mail us. If you see issues with pollution or whatnot, then don't be afraid to phone the district. There is some handouts back there about other telephone numbers and whatnot on who to contact. So with that, that's the conclusion of my. Oop, yeah. Oh, I turned it off. I'm going to turn it back on here. Yeah. Anybody else have a question?
Oh, sir, you.
Yeah, I was just curious. Do you have any way of telling whether the Cypress Creek hatchery fish are actually returning to Cypress Creek or any creeks along here?
Yeah, well, oops. Cypress Creek is one that doesn't have too many fish returning to it, but all the creeks have some salmon coming back to them. There is new DNA technology availed. It's coming out now where we can categorize our fish through DNA, and then when the fish come into the creeks, the science can sense, even from their poop, if that fish is a local fish that originated in any of the hatcheries. So it is coming down the pipe. Zoanne, do you have any?
If it's coho salmon, if they're from the hatchery, they'll have a adipose clip.
Yeah,
So
but
they'll
that's all
actually
the hatcheries are
clip it.
doing.
They all have the same
Yeah.
clip. I don't know if Nelson clips theirs or not.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
We do.
We're starting, right, Jan? We're clipping our coho.
Yeah, we're 2 years into that. This
Yeah.
year.
So next year they'll.
But the DNA, that science is working
There is
its way
that
down the
science. It's
pipe.
rather expensive
Yeah.
when you do each one, and it takes a long time to get the information to come back.
It would be great information if we could actually say, you know what, that fish originated from our hatchery.
Yeah.
That would be, we would have a party that lasted for days if we could say that.
When they had the pin in their nose as well as the clip, that explained a lot about the fish and who the parents were and everything. But that was more expensive to do and a little bit more invasive on the
Right.
fish.
Well, I guess the short answer is yes, but no.
Sir, in the back, you had a
Oh,
question?
sorry, yeah.
The cutthroat, do they only live in streams or do they make their way to the ocean?
There are sea-run cutthroat. I don't know the actual, John, is there any difference between a resident cutthroat and a sea-run cutthroat, or one that might go in and out of the ocean?
They're different.
They're different, but visually,
It's the same species of trout, but no, the sea runs are anadromous, they're in and out. The estuaries is where they're home.
Yeah.
Where the cutthroat are usually generally
Stay.
all the way through the system. And
So-
they stay in it.
John, can you visually, are the sea-runs just tend to be a bit bigger, or?
Oh, yeah, they will be. There was, if I could just stand, there was an occasion where a woman that ran our hatchery many, many years ago, Elizabeth Hardy, phoned me about this big fish in the stream. I said, well, is it a salmon? She said, I don't know. It's smaller than an adult salmon. It's bigger than a resident trout. What do you think I got? So I said, well, I'll come meet you there. Maybe we can get a look at it. And I sort of had in the back of my mind, I'd get tail end of a piece of fishing rod like Mike has, and a piece of line and a barbless hook and a bunch of worms out of the compost. And I go down and I flip 3 of these things onto the bank, and we had a cooler for the box for them, and just to study them. They're absolutely beautiful sea-run cutthroat trout. The markings are different. They're just a gorgeous fish, but they're still up and down the coast, and a lot of rivers, even though the estuaries have been badly damaged, they're still there, and they're tremendous fish. They're quite different, and we don't see that many sea runs. But that's a case of somebody's experienced, runs a hatchery, has been streamkeeper for many years, bumps into something she's not seen before, but they're there.
Can the resident ones go into the salt water?
Yeah, well, they're in and out, the sea runs,
Alright.
but the
Oh, yeah.
coastal cutthroat are typically stayed with their own stream.
Yeah.
And that's when we had a fish kill on Larson Creek, the temptation was to restock it. Well, these are special fish to that stream. And it's basically that stock has been rebuilding itself, which is encouraging. There must have been little slight areas outside passways. There's a beaver pond there, and there must have been enough in those areas that did not get hit with that polluting flume in 2018 that run is building up. Mike, could I just take a minute to mention a couple of things if you would mind? Number one is the statistics. You can
Excuse
get
me,
the-
John, would you like the microphone?
Sure.
I can't, I'm going to come to the front. Yeah, thanks.
I'll just introduce myself. I'm John Barker, and I'm the past president of the organization, and it's a delight to see Mike taking the role he is and making these presentations. Keith and Jan Mosier, terrific additions to the organization. So we're very strong with the people we have. 2 comments I wanted to make. The statistics you see in our website and you've seen here today, they can be a little bit depressing. What you have to realize, and I bumped into this a number of years ago, is we're reporting what we see. That doesn't mean to say that's what's in the creek. And if you go survey some of our streams, it's almost impossible because it's all private land. the best survey areas we have happen to be the two most productive streams, Brothers and Haddon. Big setback areas, the first land developed upper lands, British Pacific properties. They were big properties and lots of space, and they retain water beautifully. And those numbers, we have great access all the way through. You get to other areas like McDonald Creek is perfect from the ocean up to Fulton, and fish can't get past Fulton on McDonald Creek. And the same with Lawson Creek. We have good survey areas, but some of the other streams, it's almost impossible. Cypress is very difficult, Eagle is very difficult, but we have people willing in the community of streamkeepers to go look. And it honestly, so there's two things. That one of them cropped up was I got a phone call from a consultant who was trying to convince the municipality and fisheries that there weren't any salmon there. And I said, well, how do you know that? When he's talking to me, he said, well, your website, it shows no salmon. Well, that's not categorically accurate. And that's very misleading and damaging for the organization. The other thing I'll quickly say is the fish kill that occurred on Brothers Creek was such an anomaly. I've never seen it in 20 years of surveying that area. And it's staggering to think that the fresh coho arriving from the ocean perished almost on arrival. All these fish have their ocean colors, silver. When they hit a stream, all their colors change. You can tell all the species, male and female, so easily once they hit the river. These fish were silver. And I opened 8 fish within a 2-day period. I was with a student, I was relieving another fellow who was designated to that. I was leading the overall program. But this fellow said, I've got a conference, can you take it for me? It was the second week of the surveys. And what did we find? We found 8 dead fish, and everyone had perished right away. 4 female, 4 males. I had took my Zac knife the next morning, opened them up and had a look. None of the females had spawned. The fish was silver, and interestingly, everyone was a hatchery fish. They were all adipose clipped. Capilano hatchery clipped all their fish, so we know. They were smaller than our resident coho that are in that stream, and here we are with this very strange activity. I had no idea what was going on. I talked to North Shore Streamkeepers. They've been seeing the same thing, and he had the answer, which is this 6-PPD, which is a residue that comes off tires. It's there to protect tires and increase longevity. And I think of it like as an elastic band. You have it laying around for a few years, you pull on it, it just falls apart. That's what the 6-PPD do. It's supposed to extend tire life. And it's so strange that it falls on, I think everybody's read the article, so I won't give you the whole 9 yards. But when it hits the road, it just sits there. And if it sits there through a drought period and we get a great big rainfall that dissolves this stuff, every storm drain goes straight into creeks, some of it to the ocean, but just about 90-odd% of it goes straight in the creeks. It went in and wiped out everything in its path. So that week that came down, we had about 70% of the fish in the system perished, the cutthroat, and a lot of them were hatchery fish. Our main run hadn't started to arrive. We don't start looking for our coho and chum until the week after Thanksgiving. This event happened in September, and most of these fish were hatchery fish. As Mike said, we had a banner year for coho. It's the second biggest year in 16 years of coho in Brothers and Haddon Creek. So you've got these strange anomalies that are going on. If I fast forward to the fact of what happened, we may never see it again. The timing was so strange. Drought, delay, rain, big rainfall, and these are early fish arriving that we would normally not see during those events. The thing now, what are we going to do about it? And there is a solution, and that's been satisfied and tested and tried, and it's simple. We just need to build ray gardens, bioswales, the ability to run this residue through something. And it's just green plant matter with natural soil, and they exist. If you look at the Upper Levels Highway, the bioswales, I don't know if they were invented for that. They've got catch basins along the Upper Levels Highway coming down the tail of it, and some of that is going through bioswales. I don't think they were ever built as that, but it's just soil and all kinds of native vegetation and some other like blackberry and everything. But this is a solution, and we're working with the district. I guess is the point I'm standing here. We're working with the district. We've met with 3 departments: environment, engineering, and parks. They're all on site. These are senior people, director level and senior management. They're on site with it. We have an engineer who's assigned to Streamkeepers, who's working now with the province. We want that water that's coming down Upper Levels Highway, that's ended up in Haddon and Brothers Creek. We're picking the primary areas to create a bioswale there, designed and built for that purpose. So that's not that well known, but that's a path we're on. And we'd like to have it built this summer so it's in effect. We'll be able to, Streamkeepers, do the volunteer work to test that water, send it to take samples ahead of it, and after it's been through a bioswale, send it to the lab, and they'll do the analysis for us, and we'll find out how successful it is.
That sounds great, John. Thank you very much.